It's possible that there is some mind-altering aspect to these UFO encounters. A lot of people get a sense of missing time, and clearly something is happening to their memories. They're oftentimes erased, fuzzy, hard to recall exactly what happened to them in association with this UFO encounter that they may have had. One thing, too, to keep in mind, though, is that it's not just this mental aspect. There's also a physical aspect to the way in which time passes. These objects seem to have the ability to manipulate space-time, and there's a number of case studies that seem to demonstrate this. Corporal Armando Valdez in Chile got close to one of these craft, aged 5 days over the course of what was 15 minutes to his men. A number of other cases indicate that within close proximity to these craft, time and space are oftentimes speeded up, or that there's some alteration to the rate at which time passes as people get close to these craft, which is another indication that they have the ability to modify space-time. And if they can do this, there's a good chance that they are time machines, that they have the ability to travel forward and backward through time. It's interesting that we're so connected to this archetypal gray alien, and it makes sense. They're very similar to us. It's easy to recognize some commonalities between us and them, since they still have a quintessentially hominin form. They're still upright walking, the trait that defines the hominin lineage. They have bilateral symmetry. They're most often described as having 5 digits on each hand, which is a very old characteristic, as with being a tetrapod, having 4 limbs. It goes back approximately 400 million years into the past. So it's a good indication that if this is an aspect of these beings, with the big eyes, the big heads, the small faces, relative hairlessness, bipedalism, penadactyly, tetrapods, that they are not just from this planet, but based on the characteristics they're most often described having, that they're simply us from the future. If we project the last 6 to 8 million years of hominin evolution forward, we're likely to have these same characteristics. So it's important to point out, though, that the Greys, at least based on research from the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free study, that these Greys are actually after humans as far as what people report seeing most often in these close encounters and with onboard encounters where they're actually in the ship interacting with these beings. The majority of cases, based on their research, a large sample of over 3,000 individuals, state that a human was the first and most common form that they report seeing, followed next by the short grays and then the tall grays and then other forms after that. But it's important to point out that all of these are still hominin forms. They're still bipedal. They still have all of these same hominin traits. So it's important to consider that in the context of the UFO phenomenon. It's certainly possible that these UFO encounters are intricately linked to consciousness, some sort of pan-consciousness, one that transcends time and space. A lot of people seem to have very impactful experiences that modify their view of the world. They seem to come away with it with a greater sense of empathy and love. Obviously, not all cases are like that. Some are very traumatized and don't have a good experience, but those that have multiple experiences over a period of time do tend to embrace what happens to them, and they come to appreciate it and want it to happen again in the future. But because there is such an impact on our way of thinking, and because of very commonly described telepathic communication between us and these beings, it does indicate that there's some sort of greater consciousness involved, or some more evolved consciousness that seems to permeate time and space, and possibly an aspect of our future human evolution, that we're moving toward this greater understanding of the universe, and I think consciousness plays a big part in that.